Greetings from Brother Stephen. I'm a disciple and witness of Jesus Christ. To all the inhabitants of the earth, I present to you as a witness this gospel of the kingdom. In this lesson today, titled Qayin, Murder, Hebel, we're going to be going over Genesis chapter 4, verses 8 through 16. Like always, we're going to read these verses in that King James Version, Oxford edition of 1769, which is a false translation of the Bible. I'll go over that in detail in the study on the YouTube channel called Christ's Name is Jesus, Not Jesus. So beginning at verse 8, it says, And Cain talked with Abel his brother. And it came to pass when they were in the field that Cain rose up against Abel his brother and slew him. And the Lord said unto Cain, Where is Abel thy brother? And he said, I know not. Am I my brother's keeper? And he said, What have you done? Or what hast thou done? The voice of thy brother's blood crieth unto me from the ground. And now art thou cursed from the earth, which hath opened her mouth to receive thy brother's blood from thy hand. And when thou tillest the ground, it shall not henceforth yield unto thee her strength. A fugitive and a vagabond shalt thou be in the earth. And Cain said unto the Lord, My punishment is greater than I can bear. Behold, thou hast driven me out this day from the face of the earth, and from thy face shall I be hid, and I shall be a fugitive and a vagabond in the earth. And it shall come to pass that everyone that findeth me shall slay me. And the Lord said unto him, Therefore whosoever saith Cain, vengeance shall be taken on him sevenfold. And the Lord set a mark upon Cain, lest any finding him should kill him. And Cain went out from the presence of the Lord and dwelt in the land of Nod on the east of Eden. So now we're going to get into my translation of these subsections of scriptures. And that's Lord Stephen version of 2019, beginning with verse 8. It says, And Qayin talk with Hebel. Qayin and Hebel is just the Hebrew pronunciations of their name. Cain and Abel is more of the Greek pronunciation. And from Greek, they transliterated it into English. But Qayin and Hebel is the Hebrew pronunciation of those names. So, and Qayin talked with Hebel, his brother. And it came to pass when they were in the field that Qayin rose up against Hebel, his brother, and killed him. Or you can say murdered him. So the first thing that I want to go over, if you go back to Genesis chapter 4, verses 1, this is when Cain's name first appears in the Bible. And as you can see, it comes from the Hebrew reference number 7014. And this information comes off a website called the Blue Letter Bible. You will search Genesis chapter 4, verses 1. You'll open the Strong's Concordance. Or you can just search Cain's name, then open the Strong's Concordance. And then you'll click on 7014. The next screen that will open up will give you the lexicon Strong's Hebrew reference number 7014 and the pronunciation. So this is the translation, the Hebrew name that Cain is translated from. And the way this pronounces is Qayin. And this is how a transliteration of his name into English would be like this. And again, Cain is not necessarily a false translation. It is just it comes from the Greek and transliterating the Greek into English. Now, again, when you look at Qayin's name in Hebrew, this is another Hebrew word, and it is pronounced Qayin also. It is Hebrew reference number 7013, and it appears one time in the scriptures in 2 Samuel 21:16. And as you can see, they translate this word into spear. So this just means some type of knife or dagger. And it's possibly what Quan created to kill his brother. He was the first person to invent a weapon, and he used it for evil to kill his brother. So again, Quan names, and also in the Old Testament, is in reference to a weapon, a knife. So the next thing is just a family tree of the descendants of Adam and Kava. That's also Adam and Eve. Again, Adam and Kava is the Hebrew pronunciation. Adam and Eve is the Greek pronunciation. Their first children was the Nephilim, and we call them the Nephilim because after Adam and Kava fell, and all of their children, they all called Nephilim. They was giants. They are the ones that fell. Adam and Kava had children before Quan and Hebel. Quan and Hebel is that prophecy and astrology that today we know as Gemini. And Gemini just represents the age where Satan will have a seed and her will have a seed. And that her is God's seeds, but it's really, the reason it refers to her seed is because it's referring to Israel, the 12 tribes of Israel. It's also like referring to the bride of Christ. So you have Quan, who is the seed of the wicked one, and you have Hebel, which was the seed of God. And even in the very beginning, Adam and Kava, first children after the flood. Again, a good son and a bad son. Or you can say an evil son and a righteous son, righteousness, one love, one hate. There was complete opposites. And again, over that last lesson, that is what divides them. That is that racism that divides man. It has nothing to do with skin color, but it has to do with that mind's eye, the imagination and the consciousness of individuals. Some people are to the extremely good, then you have some people that are extremely bad, and then you have all type of instances of people that imagination and consciousness is in between both of those extremes. But the people who are born of God, they are extremely good, extremely righteous. They do not disobey God. And those people that are just born of Satan, they are extremely evil. They hate people. They're jealous people. They imagine evil things, and they have an evil conscience. When you go to 1 John chapter 3, verses 9 through 12, it says, not as Cain, who was of that wicked one, who killed his brother, and killed he him because his own works were evil and his brother's righteous. In the end, that is jealousy. And that is one of those things that divides evil people from good people. Evil people gets jealous of righteous people because righteous people will point out, or if righteous people not even point out directly, but because their actions, it lets people know that the actions of evil people are not good. When you go to John chapter 3, verses 19 through 20, this is just give you a little bit more insight on that racism that exists between goods and evil. It says, men love darkness rather than light because their actions are evil. For everyone that do evil hate the light. They hate other good people. They hate God. They hate their deeds being exposed. It says, neither come to the light, lest their actions should be exposed. So when you go back to Genesis chapter 3, verses 14 to 15, when it says, and Jehovah Elohim said unto Nakash, and again, Nakash is Hebrew for the serpent. It says, because you have done this, you are cursed, and I will put racism. And then this John chapter 3, verses 19 through 20, this is that racism. This is that love. This is that hate. Men love darkness rather than light because their actions are evil. For everyone that doeth evil, hate the light, neither come to the light, lest their actions should be exposed. And this is why evil people hate the light, because they don't want to admit that they are doing stuff wrong, they are doing stuff bad, they are doing stuff evil. So this is why evil people hate the light and hate good people. Then it says between your progeny and her progeny. And again, the that progeny in the age of Gemini was Qayin and Hebel. And again, if you look up progeny, I've used the word progeny instead of seed. So if a person look up progeny in a dictionary, they will understand exactly what it means. And the word seed means the same thing as this definition of progeny. It is a descendant or the descendants of a person, their offspring, the children, the young, the family. So we have verse 9. It says, and Jehovah said unto Qayin, where is Hebel your brother? And he said, I know not. Am I my brother's protector? And he said, what have you done? The voice of your brother's blood cry unto me from the Adamwa. And all Adamwa is red soil. And it is the red soil that God pottered Adam out of in the beginning. And this is how Adam gets his name. It comes from the Adamwa, which is red soil. So Adam literally means the red man. So again, just going over the voice of your brother's blood, cry unto me from the ground. Just give you a few scriptures to open up your insight on what that means. If you go to Hebrews chapter 11, verse 4, it says, by faith, Abel offered unto God a more excellent sacrifice than Cain, by which he obtained witness that he was righteous. In other words, he was right. He obeyed God. God testifying of his gifts, and by it being dead, yet he spake. So it means even when he dead, he spoke. The first thing, if you go to Leviticus chapter 17, verse 11, the first part of that verse says, for the life of the flesh is in the blood. So one of the things that it meant when it says, the voice of your brother's blood cry unto me from the Adamwa, it is because he spilt his blood into the soil. And that is again, the life of the flesh is in the blood. So his blood was in the ground. And another verse, if you go to Revelations chapter 6, verse 10, it says, and when he had opened the fifth seal, I saw under the altar the souls of them that were slain for the word of God. This will be including Abel, and for the testimony which they held. And they cried with a loud voice, saying, how long, O Lord, holy and true, do you not judge and avenge our blood on them that dwell on the earth? So that is that voice that cries from the ground. Verse 11 says, and this is Jehovah Elohim talking to Qayin. He says, and now are you cursed from the earth, which have opened her mouth to receive your brother's blood from your hand. When you farm the ground, or farm the Adamah, it shall not henceforth yield unto you her strength. A fugitive and a nomadic shall ye be in the earth. Now you go to Genesis chapter 4, verses 12, when it talks about when thou tillest the ground, it shall not henceforth yield to thee her strength. A fugitive and a vagabond. And use the word vagabond in the King James Version Bible instead of nomadic. Now, when you look up the Hebrew reference number for vagabond, it is Hebrew reference number 5110. And as you can see, I already have that pulled up here for you on my screen, the Lexicon Strong's reference number that vagabond is translated from. And this is the Hebrew word it is translated from. Now, all I did was I took that Hebrew word and I used an online translator to translate it into English. And as you can see, one of the translations is nomadic. And this is the reason I chose to go with this translation, is because when you look up nomadic in the dictionary, it means living the life of a nomad. This means wandering. And when you look up nomad to understand what nomadic means, it says a member of a people having no permanent abode and who travel from place to place to find fresh pasture, for their livestock. So because the ground was cursed for um, the ground would not yield her strength unto Quan for his sins, he constantly had to travel from place to place to find fresh pasture, again, for him and for his livestock. And then, as you can just see, some of the synonyms: traveler, wanderer, etc. And one of the subsections of this definition says a person who does not stay long in the same place, a wanderer. So there's a great translation to use in place of vagabond. Now, another word you can use in its place instead of vagabond is on the run. And as you can see, you can literally look up on the run in a dictionary, and it means trying to avoid being captured. So if you was to go back up to Genesis 4 and 12, it will say a fugitive and on the run shalt thy be in the earth. And again, that word on the run just kind of helps you bring it to a modern day understanding. He was a fugitive, and just like most fugitives are constantly on the run, this was the first fugitive, and he was constantly on the run. So verse 13 says, and Quan said unto Jehovah, my punishment is greater than I can bear. Behold, you have driven me out this day from the face of the earth. And when he's talking about he has driven him out this day from the face of the earth, he's talking about from the garden, from Eden. Or from the fertile crescent, or the cradle of civilization. It says, and from your face shall I be hid, and I shall be a fugitive and on the run in the earth. And it shall come to pass that every one that find me shall kill me. And Jehovah said unto him, therefore, whosoever kill Quan, vengeance shall be taken on him sevenfold. And Jehovah set a mark upon Quan, lest any finding him should kill him. So when you go to Genesis chapter 4, verse 14 on the Blue Letter Bible, and you look up the Hebrew reference number for Mark, it comes from H226. And this is that Hebrew word here that Mark is translated from. Now, the first thing I did, so you can kind of understand what this mark means, I took the Hebrew and I translated it back to ancient Hebrew. This is modern Hebrew. This is the original ancient Hebrew. Now, when you translate Hebrew back into the ancient Hebrew, the definition of the word is the word. So you read each symbol like a sentence. So basically what mark means is L, nail to the wall. So it means to like almost hanging a picture. He's nailing it to the wall. Now, when you go to Genesis chapter 1, verse 14, when it says, Elohim said, let there be light in the atmosphere of the heaven to divide the day from the night, and let them be for signs. This word signs come from that same Hebrew reference number 226. So when you go L, nail to the wall, it's like hanging a sign on the wall or putting a sign in the heavens so that people can read it. So my understanding of this when I read this is it's the same thing. You have a fugitive, you have a on a run, and typically what people will do when you have a fugitive on a run is they have a wanted sign posted up. And this is, this is kind of just being a little comical. So it's say wanted, something that people will recognize that it is Cain, and it says for murder by Abel. But this, in most wanted posters, there was a fee for reward for capturing the person dead or alive. In this instance, people would have known that vengeance belongs to El. Vengeance is mine, says Jehovah Elohim. Whoever killed Quan, vengeance shall be taken on him sevenfold. So in other words, God was going to let vengeance be taken out. God vengeance was going to handle Quan. He didn't want man killing man at this time. So that's just giving you kind of an example of that mark. It's a sign, and it probably was a sign that people could read in the heavens or something like that. We're just not 100% sure. When you get to verse 16, it says, "And Qayin went out from the presence of Jehovah and lived in the land of Nod on the east of Eden." This kind of goes back to the study we just did on Adam sent to Egypt when we covered Genesis chapter 3 verses 23, because it read, "Therefore Jehovah Elohim sent him forth," talking about Adam, "from the Garden of Eden to garden the Adamah from where he was taken." And again, that word Adamah just means garden, the ground, that red soil from where he was taken. So in this study, I have to show you where Eden was so you can understand where Adam was taken from and where he was sent back to. When you go to Genesis chapter 2 verses 8, it says, "And Jehovah Elohim planted a garden eastward in Eden, and there he put Adam whom he had pottered." And then again, we have this study titled Eden, which we go over in detail, the location of Eden. So pretty much what you have, and I'm just going to scroll down here. Eden scientifically is called the Fertile Crescent. Some people call it the cradle of civilization. It is the same place as Eden, and it is this green highlighted area here from Egypt to Mesopotamia. So when it goes, I'm sorry, I'm going to scroll back up to read the verse. "And Jehovah Elohim planted a garden eastward in Eden." This is Eden. This is the beginning of Eden. If you go eastward from the beginning of Eden, you end up at Jerusalem, the city of David. And again, one of the reasons you know this is eastward, because if you go eastward from any other point, you kind of end up outside of the Fertile Crescent. So again, once you understand where Eden is, when you go back to verse 23, when it says, "Therefore Jehovah Elohim sent Adam forth from the Garden of Eden to garden the Adamah," or that red soil, "from whence he came," he's saying he sent him back. Again, the garden. I'm sorry, let me read that one more time. "Sent him forth from the Garden of Eden to garden the Adamah from Africa, Egypt." He sent him back to where he was pottered. So again, all life began in Africa, Egypt. And then Adam was placed in the Garden of Eden, which is in Jerusalem, probably the city of David, same location. The temple was built, but not on the Temple Mount. And after he fell, he was sent back to the soil from whence he came. He went back to Egypt, what we call today Egypt, Africa, Egypt. So when you get to verse 16, where it says, "And Qayin went out from the presence of Jehovah and lived in the land of Nod," this is talking about modern day Iran. And it says on the east of Eden. But what is the east Eden? Is the Fertile Crescent. So east of the Fertile Crescent, again, that is that modern day Iran, the land of Nod. So Qayin or Cain completely left the Fertile Crescent. He went from Egypt all the way over on the run to what we know today as Iran. And with that being said, this concludes this gospel.